We are back. Hello, Jared. We're back. Welcome to Done with Adulting Pod, everybody.
How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Living life.
The Mercury planet is in retrograde or whatever, so I feel like my past couple weeks have been a little hectic, but
I saw you tweet that,
yeah, it's real. It's a real thing.
but I feel like exactly like what your tweet said. I feel like it's been in retrograde for the past year.
Forever. Well,
Like, what
it's
is
been
it?
in retrograde 2 times already this year in different periods. And then this time around, this is like the second week. And I think it's over on November 20th or something. So we'll see if my luck changes then.
And what they say, like a lot of weird things happen when it's in retrograde.
Yeah, just like everything is going wrong. I don't really know the science behind it, but everything has been going wrong.
The vibes are off, huh?
Everything's off. My vibes are not aligned. So I'm glad we're doing the podcast because this is the only constant thing that's been going on in my life so far.
It's the therapy session.
Literally therapy.
But actually, no, I think this episode is going to be extremely dope.
I am so excited. You don't even know. You know, I have so many questions.
I think once we let everybody know what this one's about, they'll be just as excited.
So this week, on the second week of our guest marathon, we're going to be talking about home buying, which is the after parenting, the next scariest phase of my life. I feel.
AKA, they call this the American dream? Buy a house with a white picket fence.
Seriously. And as somebody who has recently moved back in with their parents as an adult, it is something that is obviously very hard to adjust to. And although I'm very lucky to have the time to save my money at mom's house, it's really time for me to get it together.
Hold on, so like growing up, were you always like thinking like, oh my God, I can't wait to buy a house, or like is buying a house like extremely important to you?
Yes. And actually, I want to buy my house, like the house that I grew up in at some point, but definitely can't afford it. And
It's like a baller move right there.
I know, but I wouldn't do that until that would be like my second house.
I think this is going to be a good topic, good episode.
Yeah. So anyways, the long-winded way of saying that we're very excited to have our own personal realtor guest on the show.
Yeah.
Casey McLaughlin. Hello, Case.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Thank you for coming on.
I'm just happy that I know a realtor personally and that you were willing to come on because I feel like you know all the answers to my questions. You are holding the answers.
I'm here to help, to dive into this, not stress you out too much, but prepare you for that day when you start thinking about it. It's good to get a little jump start and see, what things you need to plan for now and what things you can hold off on. So I'm excited.
So I guess to start off, like how long have you been a realtor and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I've been a realtor for about 2 years. I originally did not start as a realtor out of college. I worked as an HR manager for a brief moment in time, and that was quickly not for me. My mom's a real estate attorney, so I've always kind of, been involved in the real estate world growing up, listening to her. Eventually, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to take the test, and I'm going to see where it goes. I still had my job, but I figured it'd be good to, get my license. If I don't use it now, that's fine. But I ended up just diving right into it, and I've been doing it ever since.
How was the process to get the license? Was it something that was like long and strenuous, or?
It's not too long. So you have to take a 40-hour class. There's many ways to take the class. I did videos. So the company that I work for now, Classified Realty Group, they offered, videos that you could come into the office and go in a private room and you could watch them at your own pace. So that was nice for me because, I could come and go. I could do 2 hours one day. I could do 4 hours the next. It was really on your own time schedule. That worked well for me. The videos were a bit boring. It was hard to focus, just yourself watching someone, speak at you. But if you're more of a hands-on visual person, they do classes. You can do a week-long intensive class and bang out the 40 hours in a week, which a lot of people have liked. And then you have to, once you've gotten the 40 hours, you can sign up to take the test. So in Massachusetts, you have to take the federal test and the Massachusetts state test. You take them together, but it's a long test. It takes about 2 hours, I'd say.
Damn.
Right.
And it's very hard. Like, I'll just say that it's really hard. The pass rate, you can see people, you take it in a room with a bunch of people and you can see people going out, and you either get you can see by the paper that they hold up if they passed or failed. So I kept seeing people go out and failing, and I'm like, oh
How
my
can you see?
gosh.
It's a different color or something?
Yeah, it was like a light blue versus like a pink or something. I was
It's kind of intimidating. Yeah, that's
very
intimidating.
intimidating. And the questions are hard. It's not like your typical, the things I deal with day to day in real estate are not the questions you receive on the test. They're like worst case scenarios. So it was not, it's really like book information. So you really had to study and put in a lot of time. That's, I think, people think that it's easy to get into a 40-hour class, take the test, but it's like you really need to prepare and study because it's really hard. But once you pass the test, you don't have to ever take it again. So,
Well, I have so many questions, Jared. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, this is going to be. I hope you guys are. Hope you guys strap in. This is going to be a long one. We have like 30 to 40 questions.
Buckle your seatbelts because I have too many questions. And I guess maybe a good place to start is like, hopefully some people can identify with this, but I am living with family, trying to save money for, I guess, a down payment. That's what I've heard. And like, I think my first question is like, where does somebody even start? I've heard of people taking like home buying classes and then their bank gives them a lower rate or something. And then I've also heard people just like find a realtor and the realtor does everything for them. Like, where do I even start? How much am I supposed to be saving? I truly have no idea.
So I always say, like, when you're in the first stages, just start by looking on the internet, seeing what areas you're interested in, kind of highlight, like, your must-haves. Like, if you have kids, you need to be in a good school district. Do you want a lot of land? Do you want to be near a city like Boston? Do you not care about being close to the city? Do you need to be close to work? So I always say, just start first doing your own research, just kind of narrowing down kind of maybe a few towns. Because if you're looking at like 12 towns, like it's really hard, it gets overwhelming. So it's good to start on your own, like what area do I want to be in? And then I always say, buy where you can afford. People a lot of times are like, oh, the market will change. I'll be able to afford it more next year, things like that. You always want to buy what you can currently afford, because you never know what's going to change. Being house poor is no good. So that's what I always say too, because as you look closer to Boston, obviously the house prices are going to go up. If you don't need to be close to the city, yeah. It's good and bad. It's good investment, but it's also, as you're starting out, coming from, not owning, maybe renting, living with your parents, living closer to Boston is becoming, untouchable. It's really hard to afford. So I always say, look where, if you can afford to go closer to Boston, it's great. Otherwise, go where you can afford.
Okay, but before, I don't mean to interrupt you, but to back it up, like, how do I know what I can afford?
Good question. So another thing when you're starting to think about it, besides, finding a realtor, is, finding a lender that you're going to work with, finding a bank, finding a brokerage company that can kind of give you an idea based on your current income, your debt, your credit score. They take all those papers and all of that together. You give them, a lot of your information, and they can really give you a ballpark of where you should be looking, what's like your highest and what's, a happy medium. But they can really give you kind of like a dollar amount where you should be looking in a good range.
And they give you your pre-approval, right?
Yep. So whenever I'm starting to work with a client, I always just say, it's best to get it pre-approved now. You can always change the pre-approval letter depending on, how long it takes you to find a house. But it's just good to know that number in the back of your head where you can comfortably land. There's a lot of factors that come together for that, to that pre-approval. And that's not really my realm, but it's a huge factor. And it helps you if you're just starting to look out. If they're like, hey, you really need to get your credit up higher in 600s, then that's what you need to focus on right now before you keep looking. Because, you need to start eliminating debt. You come out of college, you have all these bills and you start racking up your credit card. And then all of a sudden you realize like, shoot, I need to start paying that down because that's going to affect me buying a home in a few years if I don't get my credit up. There's many factors that affect it. Your tax returns will be looked at. But I do think starting and talking, a lot of people don't think to talk to the bank or a lender first, but I really think it goes hand in hand with, finding a realtor that you trust is, getting pre-approved and just so that you're comfortable and you're not just like, oh, I think I can afford this $600,000 house. You want to come to reality with buying a house and really figuring out, because you don't want to stretch yourself too thin, especially in your first house. You want to be able to live comfortably. You know what I mean? You don't want to not be able to afford your groceries.
So I'm originally from Jersey. So like seeing the housing prices like down there and even like further south, like up here, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I know, it's crazy.
But first of all, like what do you do all of Mass or like what specific areas do you target?
Yep. So I'm licensed in all of Massachusetts. So, I can go where my clients go. I work out of Reading and North Reading. That's where my company is. So that's where I am day to day. But, I know a ton about that market. But I do go elsewhere. I go into Boston. I just did something in Medford, Peabody. I dip around other towns. But when I do that, I do like to call local agents and get a feel for, everything so that I'm just as up to date because I know a lot about where I am, but it's good, to advise your clients to reach out to local agents as well.
Gotcha. And sorry. Also, another quick question: what do you prefer, or what would you, I guess, suggest to your clients? A lending company or a bank?
That was my question.
Oh, look at us!
Look at us.
Good question. Well, it depends. It's kind of a personal preference. We do a lot of work with guaranteed rate.
Can you explain that?
So Guaranteed Rate is a brokerage company. Mm-hmm. So they will shop around and find the best rates. And then, but at the end of the day, they can sell your loan. They can, if you choose to work with a local bank, your loan stays with that bank. Mm. But a lot of time we find with companies like Guaranteed Rate, they're very quick and efficient. They can get you pre-approved in 30 minutes. And then they're just very good with staying on track. I've had a lot of great success with them. Sometimes if you work with a bigger bank, like a national bank, then, things can get tied up and deadlines can be missed. They're such a big company. So it's, it's kind of, a lot of people start and look online and certain companies are proving to have the best rates. But I think it's also good when you're starting to shop around and kind of get some feedback from different local banks, some brokerage companies like Guaranteed Rate. And kind of see what their rates are and what they're going to do with your loan. At the end of the day, if they sell your loan, it doesn't really make a difference to you. You're locked in at your percent. So, most people don't care about that. But some people like to know that the bank has their loan and all that. So it's kind of a personal preference.
So in terms of the starting point and the timeline, let's say somebody was looking to move into a new home, their first home, by fall 2020, yep. Right?
Yep.
When should that person start this process that you're saying with reaching out to lenders and figuring out if you're getting pre-approved and what your budget would be, I guess?
I would say no matter when you want to look, the sooner the better. As quick as you can get on top of it. And like I said, figure out what you can currently afford, figure out what you need to improve. People that want, that don't talk to anyone and then are like, oh, it's fall and I want to buy a house in 6 weeks. And then they're scrambling to get their credit score up. And then, it's better as early as you can. If you right now aren't ready to move out, but you're starting to think about it, why not do it now? You can see where what your strengths are, where your weaknesses are. You can have a great credit score, but you can have, your income might not, there's so many factors that play into it. So I just say, start now. You don't even have to find a realtor right now, but you can start looking online, seeing, the average priced homes where you're looking to kind of prepare yourself.
Mm-hmm. I've been preparing myself. I got the Zillow app and now they email me for the towns that I've pinged that I like. And every single one, I'm just like, well, maybe I should be looking elsewhere because this is not.
This doesn't sound possible.
Yeah. Every time I get a notification from Zillow, I'm like, fuck this. I'm just kidding. Why did I do this to myself? It's just it can all seem very overwhelming. And when you see the full prices of these houses, which sometimes they don't even sell for that price. And there's other things that we'll get into with the details. But when you see those numbers, you're just like, Oh, it really hurts the soul.
Yeah, $500,000.
I know why it's good to kind of establish a relationship with a realtor early on. And you can say to them, I'm not looking to buy for another year, but you can start having the conversation. You can sit down and have a buyer's consult meeting, which we do all the time. You can do it over the phone, in person, where you just sit down and talk to them about your wants, your needs, like everything that's important to you and your family. And then even if you're not going to buy for a year and a half, we can still have you, think about what you're looking for. If I see something, I can send it to you, because we see stuff every day. We know what homes go on for, what they sell for. We have access. It's called MLS. That's how we see everything, when we can see, exactly what they sell for, all of the information about everything in Massachusetts. So it helps to get in early with someone, just so, it increases your chances of finding your perfect house, because they understand the market, they understand networking. People in my office, we have meetings once a month, and we strictly talk about, what do we have coming on? Does anyone have any buyer? So we all know what each other has coming on. So having having a realtor that you trust, they have all these resources that can help you, even if you're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
And many people don't know that a buyer's agent is free. So you're not paying a realtor fee to your buyer's agent. The seller pays the full commission to the listing agent and the buyer's agent.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people don't know that. So that's a good thing to know. It's a free service for you. So definitely use it.
Oh, so if I came to your office to visit you about buying a house, and it would not cost me anything.
No. Oh my gosh. And another thing about the job is we don't work your typical 9 to 5 hours. So we work every weekend. We work nights. So we're always available. If you just have questions and you want to just pick a realtor's brain, every weekend is pretty much open houses. We do them around 12 to 2 time frame, and then showing. So that's another thing. If you're considering becoming a realtor, the weekends are a big time for us to work and, all the showings, because most people work a 9 to 5 job and they can't see a house at 2:00 on a Tuesday. So, we have to be able to show it on the weekends. So just another thing to think about.
Can you talk to me a little bit about, I want to buy a house eventually that's move-in ready. I really don't have.
That checks all your boxes.
Yeah, I don't really have a big interest in a fixer-upper, or even buying land to build on. I mean, I do have an interest in buying a house on a lot of land, but Terrence would be interested in literally building a house from scratch, and I feel like that is an impossible thing to even think about.
It's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, and so maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about the differences between those things, and the advantages. Is it advantageous to buy a fixer-upper versus move-in ready?
So, it totally depends. Everything in real estate just depends on the market you're looking in. The different towns vary so greatly in prices, for new construction. But I would say as a first-time home buyer, I wouldn't lean towards, building, or because if you're building something, you're going to pay top dollar for every single expense. They include the central air conditioning. You have to pay $4,000. When you're buying a house that's, a couple years old, that's included in the price. Every little thing adds up. Every light fixture, the countertops, every cabinet. It just the list goes on and on and on. So you pay top dollar, and you have to think about it where you're buying that. Are you going to get that back?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, but it's totally your preference. If you want everything to be pristine, you don't want to live in a house someone else has lived in, you want it to be all shiny and clean, then go for it. But I do think there is some value in buying something that just needs, maybe a few things here and there that you can slowly, when you can afford them, put that money there. Because as a first-time home buyer, that's, a huge expense. Maybe later on, your second home, your dream home.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, if you're not buying new construction, you're not probably going to check every single box. You have to be willing to give on certain things. That's why I always have people make a priority list. What are things that you can't live without? That's what you should focus on when you go see homes. If it checks their big boxes, then, if it needs, a different backsplash, you can do that with an easy fix.
Yeah.
If the cabinets aren't the right color, you can reface cabinets for a few $1,000s and look like a brand new kitchen. So that's another, that's something, it's something to think about. I like when you're starting out looking, I think it's a good idea to see both, to see what, top dollar new construction looks like, and then see something that's a fixer upper and see something in between, just so you get a grasp too on the different price points that those all are. Because it's definitely, greatly varies in price.
Jared, what's a non-negotiable thing for you when you are going to buy? Like, what's something you can't live without?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe just like one bathroom in the house. Like I need multiple I'm going to need multiple bathrooms. I can't have like guests going into my personal bathroom where I do everything. You know what I mean?
And another thing about bathrooms, when you go to resale, if you have one bathroom versus two, it's a huge difference in, the value added. A lot of homes with 3 beds, 1 bath are going to sit longer than a home with 3 beds, 2 baths. It's, it's a big value. So you want to think too, if you're just buying your first place, you're going to probably sell it in a few years. So you want to be thinking when you're buying it already about the resale. Things that bother you are going to bother someone else in a couple of years.
Definitely. So I have some knowledge like on the whole process. How do you feel when you see a property sitting on the market for too long? So what I've been told is that, like, I guess when the markets were better, houses used to only sit for a weekend, but now they're starting to sit for like months. Does that deter people?
No, I mean, yes and no. Well, the thing is, people a lot of times don't factor in the time of year. So we have about a week or two left in this fall market. And then, when the holidays start, things slow down. People don't put their houses on the market. The snow, we live in Massachusetts where we have snow. The winter is crazy. You can't show a house when you have, 3 feet of snow outside the front door. You can't even get in. So that's our market here is a lot different than a market, say, in Florida. Not that I can speak about a market in Florida, but different times of year here are greatly different markets. Last spring and summer, we were in a seller's market. So sellers were making huge profits. There was so many buyers out and so many competitive offer situations. Where I work in north of Boston, on the prime summer months, May, June, even April, we would, a move-in ready turnkey home was having 10 offers. So we put a house on the market on Thursday and have 2 open houses, Saturday, Sunday. We would have an offer deadline of Tuesday at noon, and you would receive multiple offers. So now as we're phasing out into the slower time, we don't have offer deadlines anymore. There's way less buyers looking right now because a lot of people that were looking in those spring markets had kids that they needed to get in school in August.
Oh yeah.
So people were very competitive. They were very competitive. People were paying more than some houses were worth. And then we were having issues with houses not appraising because people were getting so competitive to get their kids in school. So now as things have shifted, that's why it's important to use a realtor, just because I wouldn't be scared of a house that's been on right now sitting longer because there's not as much buyers out. There's so many less people that look now than in the spring. But if you're a buyer, you could get a house at a good deal, in the winter.
Okay, case. Let's really dumb it down for the people who
Am I just going too much?
Who really need Home Buying for Dummies 101.
He's just like, wait, what?
I have 2 questions. First of all, I know the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market, but could you maybe just catch us up on what you mean when you say that? And then when you're done with that, you said maybe the house wasn't getting appraised. Let's break that down.
Okay, so like I was saying, the seller's market, which we are experiencing last spring and summer, the economy is in a good place. The price, there wasn't necessarily a lot of inventory, but there was a lot of people out looking for, the same houses and the same price point. Another thing with the seller's market to think about is the houses that are like, 3 to 7. There's so many people that's their
range
budget. Yeah. So there was whereas you go higher and higher, 800, 900, a million, there's less people that are looking in that range. But a seller's market just means that, the sellers are usually getting multiple offers, the prices are going up and up and up, now we're experiencing kind of a balanced out market where it's not really a seller's market anymore. There's a lot less inventory on the market, but there's a lot less buyers. So it's kind of, stable.
Mm-hmm.
And then I haven't really experienced yet a full-on buyer's market. It's been a crazy seller's market like the past 2 years that I've been doing it.
How do I know when the buyer's market comes?
So would a buyer's market be like, say, if the economy or if the market crashed and the economy is bad and housing prices drop, that
and
would
the
be a
prices
buyer's market?
drop, and there would be like if there's like a surplus of people selling and there was a ton of inventory, whereas in a seller's market, if there's less inventory, everyone's going after the same few houses.
Aha.
So the supply and demand.
Yeah, it's exactly supply and demand. And like I said, for a lot of buyers think, oh, I'm going to wait until the spring to look. But looking right now and looking in the winter, there's not going to be as many options, but you could snag a house for a really good deal because there's less people looking.
And then you just have to move all your shit in a snowstorm, but it's worth it because you bought it for $100,000.
Hey, you got to make some sacrifices.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of people are afraid of that and they think, oh, I'm not going to see all the options out there. But people still do list. I mean, we have like 20 homes still in the market right now in my office. So there's still a lot going on. Some people are, thinking I should wait. But it's always good to look in the slower times.
Do you, as of right now, are you, so you said the houses that you have in your office, are you guys the selling agent for them?
Yes. No one knows like each other's sale sides. We can only see, what we have, what we're currently listing. But there's also, so many people that have their buyer's agents. There's still a lot of buyers out there looking. So,
what are your thoughts on multifamilies?
ooh, good question. I actually just sold a multifamily in Medford.
How much? Like 7s, 8s?
Yeah, it sold for $685, but they wanted to get rid of it quickly. This house was in the same family for 40 years. They had never rented it, which is unusual. And it was totally needed to be gut renovated.
But it's that price because of Medford, basically?
Exactly. So that's what's interesting is it was, everything was original. Everything was like the cabinets were from 1945. The oil tanks were new, but everything else, the systems needed to be replaced. Everything needed to be replaced. It was like peeling off wallpaper, all old appliances, but people didn't care because, they could get into Medford at $700,000 for a 2-family. So if you can get into a multifamily, I'd say it's a great investment, especially as if you can do it sooner because the prices are just going up and up and up on multis. But it's such a good investment because you can, live in one side, rent out the other, and cover your mortgage with the renter.
And you have passive income coming in.
Exactly.
So do you ever find some people, or have you heard of other people's experience where I guess they've struggled with the multifamily, like for some reason they weren't able to rent it out and had to cover the full mortgage of it?
I don't do a ton of rentals, so I'm not really an expert in that. But I know the people that bought the Medford one that I just sold, they had people calling them once they saw it sold online immediately. They were in the Tufts area, so it was easy to find students and such. But, I'm sure that does happen. But I mean, then people start, you fix it up a little bit and make little changes, lower the price. But I think usually you can find somebody to live in it. It depends obviously on the location. The closer to Boston, there's always people looking to rent. Who knows in Western Mass, and as you get farther out, what their market is like. But here, I mean, people don't seem to be, having too much trouble.
Yeah, I know a couple of people who actually own multifamilies, and they're a little older. They've had them for a while. And one thing about them, they said that I guess when the market crashed in, was it 07, 08?
Yeah, 08.
Yeah, housing prices like were cut in half, but because you're still in Boston and Massachusetts, the renting price was still the same. So
yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that's definitely a good investment people should look at if they can swing it.
And I think some people too are like scared away of that's like basically 2 houses, and if they need to be updated.
The VP of this podcast, actually.
Emily, the VP.
Total inside joke.
Vice President of Operations, Jared's wife. She is our behind the scenes VP. Okay, Casey.
Yep.
Hypothetical situation. We've talked about where to start. We've talked about researching a realtor you trust and all that stuff. So now I have done all that, right? I'm a buyer. I found my realtor,
Yep.
Casey McLaughlin. She is telling me what I like, what I want to look for. And now we have found, I visited a house, we did a showing or two or three, and I want to put an offer down.
Yep.
So like,
where do you go from there?
How? Yeah. What?
Okay.
And then like, also, is there a lot of back and forth? Like, I'll put an offer down, and then the seller's like, "Nah, man, you can do better than that." And then I'm like, "No, I'm going to stand my ground." And then you fight for that for me, right? Like, tell me the
I
deets.
mean, that's like the major part of our job is, putting in offers and negotiating, for our clients.
Yeah.
That offers, if they're accepted or if they counter, it totally depends on the market. So this past spring, summer, like I said, there was, crazy competition. And so a lot of times we were having, if there was 10 offers, then they would come back and say, all right, best and final offer. And some people come up a ton, some people don't budge. So that's kind of where, you speak with your realtor and you decide, is this house worth more? I always tell people, is it worth losing the house over $1,000? Because you have to think about it. If somebody puts $1,000 more than you, they're going to get the house. But there's obviously times when people pay too much and they get crazy bidding and they just want to have the best offer. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, that was a lot I went $80,000 over ask. And then it gets crazy. So it definitely depends on where you're looking, but that's again, our job to guide you during that process and to give you our opinion. It's ultimately always your choice, your offer price and your offer terms. But we of course advise based on the market. Like your offer price is not the whole offer. Your terms are just as important. How much money you're putting down? Are you having a home inspection? Are you waiving a home inspection?
Like some of the contingencies,
Yeah.
right?
The contingencies are a huge thing. I mean, we look at the offer price first and then we drop right down. So if you're in a competitive market and you're putting 3.5% down and everyone else is putting 20%, you can't compete. But if you waive your home inspection, that you kind of, we value a waived home inspection at like a $10,000 bump. That's a huge thing.
Why would I waive my home inspection? Can we really just talk more about that?
So I never advise, we don't advise on it, but it really does make your offer stand out. I definitely wouldn't advise it on like an older house, but if you're buying a house that was built a few years ago and you've been through it and you've brought your brother, uncle, dad, who's a, contractor, and they've looked through it and you feel comfortable, the systems are newer, you can feel comfortable that it's probably okay to do. But again, that's totally your decision. But if it's an old house built 50 years ago, you want to know what's going on. Right. So I wouldn't advise. But, there's a time and place for that. Sellers love that because then you go right to purchase and sale. You don't have anything to do. You put in the offer and there's no home inspection. There's no time for buyers to get cold feet. Because at home, people a lot of times too are using a home inspection as, oh, I can get out of this. If I don't like it, I can just say something, from the home inspection and get out of it. Because you can get out of it after the home inspection if there's an issue. So that's kind of, it's kind of a gray area. But so after you say you get the offer accepted, then, you talk to your lender and you start applying for your loan right away because that takes some time. And then you find an attorney. Your realtor can always advise on that, or if you know someone, or of course you can do your own research. And then you have your home inspection or you don't. But typically your home inspection is within 7 to 10 days of your accepted offer. So it's a quick thing. It's a quick turnaround. And again, your realtor can advise on, a home inspector if you don't know one. And then usually 10 to 14 days from the accepted offer, you sign the purchase and sale agreement, which is the huge contract that the attorneys draft up. And then, once both parties have agreed on that, you sign the purchase and sale. And that's kind of like the big, not the final step, but a big step before closing. And you put down, a good chunk of money. Usually with the first deposit and the purchase and sale, if you're putting a 20% down, you're putting 5% down at that point. So you're signing a big check. So, the likelihood of anyone backing out after that is much slimmer. And then you kind of have a little waiting period and then you have a mortgage commitment date, which is usually like around 10 days out from the closing. And that's where you need a clean commitment and a clear to close from your bank, from your lender, saying that your mortgage has been approved and you can move forward. And then you kind of have the green light to close. So then you will have the closing with your attorneys. And then a lot of people forget about closing costs. So,
oh my God.
There's more costs.
I cannot.
I know. That's another thing to think about when you're first starting out is it's not just a down payment. You have to, account for closing costs, which can, attorney fees, taxes, transfer fees.
Yeah, what's like that range? What's the range?
I mean, it depends on the home, the price.
Mhm.
So it's usually anywhere between like 2 to 7% of the home price.
What? That's like thousands.
Yeah.
I'm shook.
Yeah, it's thousands, like maybe around 10,000.
Another
it depends.
10,000. Oh my Lord Jesus!
That's not a part. Like if I have enough money to put 20% down, that's not a part of it. That's not part of it.
No.
So really, I should have enough for 27% down. And also, what is what is the average percent down? Like, do you need 20%? Can you put 10% down? Is it up to you? Is it up to like your realtor?
You can put like 3.5 down, depending on
That's what I thought.
So the short answer is no. You don't need to put 20% down. There's many options here that we have in Mass. So like we have an FHA loan, which is a lower down payment, 3.5%. There's not an income limit. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer. You can purchase a condo, a single family, a multifamily, but you must use an FHA participating lenders, and not all lenders are on the FHA approved list.
Oh my gosh.
And then the thing about paying, if you pay 3.5%, then you have to pay PMI, which is, mortgage insurance, which is a percentage of the loan. So you have to pay that, which is, another monthly cost until you're able to, refinance your home and, get out of that loan.
Oh yeah, because if you refinance it, then your PMI can go away, right?
Exactly. So, that's not an FHA loan is not a bad idea if you can, it's a really low down payment. It can help first-time home buyers, get into their home. And then a VA, if you're a veteran or, a surviving spouse or something, you can qualify for a mortgage with no money down.
Yeah, no money down. That's crazy.
And without PMI. So it's really awesome. I think it's a great thing that they do. And in a conventional loan, you put 20% down. So like in a competitive market where, I was this past spring and summer north of Boston, if you didn't put 20% down, a lot of times you didn't get the house because so many people were putting 20% down. So it depends on where you're looking. If it's a competitive market, that all matters with how much you put down. So
it's peer pressure.
Many people think you have to put 20% down. As a first-time home buyer, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money because I'm literally on my phone calculator right now, and I'm pretty sure 20% of $600 is $120,000.
600,000?
Yeah, sorry, 600,000.
Yeah,
and that just seems ridiculous to me.
I know.
Like who has 120 just sitting around?
Has 120K? Like, I'm serious, with student loan debt, with credit card debt, with these tiny ass salaries. Like, who has that? If you're renting a place, like, don't have a wedding. Warning, don't do it. Who has that much money, especially at our age? Like, unless you have support or you really don't have loans or you really been saving since you were 18. It's so hard for me to understand.
I know it's such a large amount of money to just have in your savings, just waiting, for.
Yeah, like I don't get it.
I know it's a lot.
So I have two questions for you in regards to like what you previously said when you were going through like the process. So in regards to closing, say if you're renting and your lease is up in like, say August, but you're looking for a house in May. Say if you find a house in June, are you able to push the closing until you actually move out of your apartment, or would you have to overlap?
A lot of times you can. It depends on what the seller's time frame is too. So a lot of times sellers are flexible, and the typical closing timeline is anywhere from like 45 to 60 days, can be shorter, can be longer. A lot of times sellers are, willing to push it out to, because that happens all the time with the rentals. People are always trying to line it up so that they're not paying, double, obviously. So a lot of times you can push it out. I wouldn't say you could push it out 5 months, but you can push it out. You can definitely try. That's part of, the realtor's job, is to negotiate that with the offer. That's something you talk about right up front. You put your desired close date on the offer. So that is something that's discussed right away. If that's something of importance, then it's definitely worth, trying to push.
Gotcha. And why, another question, why does the down payment matter in the offer? Doesn't the down payment go to your bank or your broker?
Yeah. So,
or does it go to the actual buyer?
Nope. So,
or the seller of the house, I'm sorry.
Real estate companies or attorneys, we keep the money in escrow. So my boss, my broker, she has all of our transactions on our listings. She has an escrow account where the deposits go into, and then those come out at the closing. They use that money to pay the agents, to pay closing costs. So that it only matters because when sellers are looking at your offer, they want to know that you're a reliable buyer, that you've been qualified, that you're not, if you have less money down, you're more likely to back out. If you're only putting $5,000 down, then it's a lot different than someone who's putting $60,000 down, because they're not going to walk away from $60,000 and back out. Whereas someone that puts less down, it's kind of the whole process. You're just a little bit worried because you don't have as much money holding them to that, to the house.
Interesting.
How much you put down matters more, I would say. In a competitive market, putting more down definitely helps you out. But in a slower time, if you put less down and it's a good offer, the seller is going to take your offer. If you've been, a lot of times, as a seller's agent, we will call the buyer's lender and talk to them and make sure that the buyer is qualified and make sure that they're reliable and that they don't expect any issues. That's part of our job too, for our sellers, is kind of to screen the possible buyers and make sure that they're stable, because a lot of deals people back out and things fall apart, and then because your commitment date is like a week before closing. So if people don't get their mortgage, it's you're 2 months, 3 months in the process, and then then the house has to be relisted. It's a huge thing. So sellers just want to feel secure about the buyer that's buying their house and feel like they're going to stick with it and that they can afford it and that their mortgage will get approved.
Got it. Also question, the clients that you're working with right now, like what is their, like what are these people's ages? Like, are the people you're working with also like our age? And
are you trying to see if you're behind the ball?
I'm just trying to see like if other people my age and my situation are really out here on the market, because if they are, am I behind the ball?
You're not behind the ball at all. Totally work with all different age ranges. I meet a lot of clients at open houses. So, I'll talk to them and then I'll see their interest and then they become my clients. But it's totally all different ranges. There's people that are young and, like you said, have been just living at home and not spending a dime and have saved a ton of money and are ready to move out. There's also, people that have been renting for 20 years, 30 years, and they're ready to finally buy. So it's totally a wide range. One of my good friends from growing up, we're actually she's in the process of buying something to close next month. And, she got a great deal in the fall. She only she put like, I think 10% down, but she's been saving. She's living at home. She's been saving, but she's not like, someone that doesn't go out and have fun and do things. She's been like slowly every month trying to save more and more. I think that's the thing to think about, is just like, you don't have to change your whole life. You just have to think every month, try to cut out those unnecessary expenses, try to like save just a little bit more of your, whatever you can. But of course, pay your loans, pay things like that are going to decrease your debt, because that's just as important as your savings. But you don't ever feel like you're behind at all. The worst thing to do is compare yourself to other people who are in totally different life situations.
Yeah, everybody's timeline is different.
Exactly. There's no two timelines are the same. So, and you don't want to buy something before you feel fully financially ready, because then you're going to think, should I have stayed at home for another year and saved more money, and then I could have afforded something else? Or, you want to be fully comfortable and confident and ready with your decision, because it's a huge, huge decision. Obviously, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. It's a huge life decision.
Jared, are you guys Like, how close do you feel to this process? Because I feel at least another 18 months away from this. I'm wondering how you guys are in a little bit different situation than me. So do you feel like this is being helpful for you? Are you close? Like, what's your jam?
Yeah, no, this is definitely helpful. We're close to it. We're in it.
I was going to say another thing to think about is if you're, living in Boston and you're spending a crazy amount of money on rent, like that could be a mortgage. A lot of people don't realize, they're spending $1,700 a month living in Boston. Like that's a mortgage payment. You don't, some people, don't think to do the steps to see what they could afford, check all their options, because like I said, if you can put 3.5% down and your mortgage is the same as your rent, you're building equity and you have a huge investment because the rent rates here are so crazy.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
Yeah,
Everything in
they're
the
out of
state's
control.
ridiculous, but that's for another time.
I was mostly just wondering, Jared, if you guys were staying in Massachusetts because I would have a heart attack if you were going to break that news to me, but we can talk about that offline.
No, yeah, we're staying in Massachusetts for
Oh,
the
thank
time
God.
being, but trust me,
I
I'm trying to
know. You're
convince her. Yeah.
protesting.
But in regards to like for you and I guess your clients making an offer, say if you saw a house on the market for like a long time, would you ever underbid, or do you think it's best to offer asking, or do you overbid only when they come back to you? Can you go through that process?
So, depending on how long it's been on, I usually advise to underbid. I always want my clients to get as much value for their money, and I always want to get them the best deal possible. If something's been sitting for a while and you don't want to lowball to the point that you're going to offend the sellers and they're going to not counter you, because then you're done. You're not, because if you offend the sellers, they will be like, I'm not going back to them. That's offensive, and so on. So you want to offer something that's lower but not crazy low. And then, you'd be surprised how many sellers are just dying to sell and they take it without even countering. And you're like, oh my God, I was expecting to spend 10,000 more. Like, awesome. So that's, your realtor will totally advise you on that. But looking at the comps, like whenever we're going to put in an offer, we do a full, CMA report and give it to you as the buyer and show you what homes of similar, size bedrooms, similar square footage, lot size, we compare them and we see what houses are listed for and what they sell for. So that gives us a good idea of where we can land. And then ultimately it's your choice. But I always say, if it's been sitting, let's try lower. The worst comes to worst, we come up a little bit, play a little negotiating, but usually you can get a better deal.
And what's it called? Say, I heard there was like this saying, I guess, or an offer where you go, "I'll give you $1,000 more than the best offer." Is that like there's a specific name for that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So say if me and you are looking at a house and you're one client, I'm another client for somebody else. Say if the house is $500,000. Say I offer 505 over their offer. You don't know what my offer is, but you go to your agent and say, I want to offer $1,000 more than what the best offer is, and that's my offer.
So that is called acceleration clause. And
Do you advise that, or I know some people don't usually?
my company, we don't really do them much, but it happens. We get a lot of acceleration clauses, especially when it's a competitive market and there's so many offers. A lot of people will do acceleration clauses. So say, for example, the house is 500,000. Someone can say, my offer's 530, and then they can say, or $1,000 over best offer up to, usually there's a cap, like up to
Oh
560.
yeah. Okay.
So that does happen, and it does. A lot of times, it does work. Some sellers are like, "Oh, I don't like that." So it kind of depends on the seller's preference, because it is kind of a tricky little game that creates. And then sometimes you get, if it's a really competitive market, you'll have like 3 acceleration clauses, and then you're like, "What do you do?"
This is a crazy game.
It really is. I always say every offer situation I'm in is like, oh my God, it's like Christmas. Like you're just trying to figure out an answer. And some people are so slow getting back to you. And you're just like, I'm ready. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And you're like, I can't sleep. I want to know if my client's got the house. Because a typical offer is good for 24 hours. And some people, they wait the 24 hours. Other people respond in 30 minutes. So it totally depends. And then you have your clients being like, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? And I'm like, no, you're hounding the other agent for any information. So that's why I really enjoy the job, because each day is so different, each situation. But, some nights when you're in an active negotiation, you're like on the phone with the other agent and, late at night trying to wrap up the deal, trying to get a solution. And so that's, again, not the typical 9 to 5 job, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds a lot of fun.
Casey, you have given me and us and everybody listening so much information. If there was like a final just like thought or like recommendation you would leave people with who are in the process or thinking about starting the process or scared of the process, like what would be your like best piece of advice to a millennial or anybody going through this
Well,
process?
first of all, I would say don't be scared, be excited about the opportunity. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just start little by little, taking whatever free time you have, looking online, researching areas. I always tell people, drive through towns. If you don't know where you're going to, if you're trying to figure out schools, drive around, like talk to local people. Start just doing that type of research, and don't overwhelm yourself thinking, I need to be in a house in 6 months. Sometimes putting time frames on is helpful, but other times it just stresses you out. If you're in a good current living situation, I would say enjoy that and don't stress and take your time with the process. But obviously not everyone has that same situation, and some people do need to move quicker. But I would say just try not to overwhelm, because getting over it can be very overwhelming. Like I said, there's so many, things to consider, your credit. The most important thing I would say is start with working on your credit. Pay down debt. That's a huge factor in, what your loan is going to be and all that. So pay down debt. Try to set yourself up for the best, possible place to be looking for a home. You want to feel comfortable. You don't want to feel like you're pressured into something. You want to be fully content and ready for that next chapter, but don't let it eat you up, because I've seen a lot of people who have just tried to do it all in 1 week and they're just burnt out.
I was going to ask you, do you have like any like client horror stories?
She just said, "Don't stress out."
I mean, like you wouldn't believe people buying and selling houses. It's as if they're like in the ER. Like it's the most people.
It's a dramatic.
Oh my gosh, people lose a sense of reality because they're so worried about their either buying or selling, and then they're texting and calling you all night long about things that neither one of you can control. There's so many factors. It can bring out the worst in people. It also brings out the best in people. So there's definitely been some situations where you're excited when the closing comes and you're like, I'll see you later. But there's also times when you've been showing someone something for months or a year and they finally find something, and I'm just so excited for them, and you've become friends over the process. And then you're like, this is why I love what I do. You get to be involved in huge life moments for people. I think the good definitely outweighs the bad. But just like in any job, there's always going to be some people that you don't get along with. There's so many different types of personalities out there, obviously. So you can't please everyone, but you do your best.
Well, Casey, I know you listen to the podcast, so I know you.
Of course.
I know that you know that we have a segment called Millennials Making Moves. And for the first time ever, we are going to be featuring our guest as the Millennial Making Move, which would be you. Woo, woo. And so we wanted to just shout you out to say thank you. Obviously, this is your business. So if you want to let everyone know how they can contact you for more information, or if they're interested in hearing about your agency or you as a realtor, how about you let everyone know how they can do that?
Perfect. So I work for Classified Realty Group. We're out of Reading and North Reading. My phone number, I'll give you my phone number. It's on the public web. This is how I run my business. 978-807-8230. Feel free to call me any time of day. Email me, Casey@classifiedre.com.
Cool. And shout out the Insta.
Oh, my Instagram is not real estate friendly. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, if you have any questions, or you just are like interested in picking my brain, or if you just want more information, reach out anytime, email, call me. I'd love to chat and help people as much as I can.
Well, thank you so much, Case. You're the best.
In the future, we're going to have to bring you back for an episode on how to sell your house.
Oh gosh, I can't even.
I'd love
Wow.
to.
You're right. We do have to do that. But we are just so happy you were able to come on today. Our second week of our guest marathon has been completed. I'm very excited about it. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
It's a lot of information.
A lot of information. If you guys like this episode, of course, we always tell you to please like and subscribe and rate and leave a review and all those things. Shout out the Insta, Jared.
Done with Adulting Pod. Also, stop texting us, telling us how much you love the podcast and the episode. Show us some love on Instagram. We're all about engagement. I want the DMs popping. I want the comments popping. I want the reposts popping, the sharing. If you hate it, then text us. You know what I mean? Let us know.
No, if you hate it, let's keep the same energy, right, Jared? That's your favorite line.
Keep the same energy.
But we appreciate y'all for listening. Thanks again, Case.
Bye. Thank you.
And we'll talk to you guys later.
Deuces.